Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 12 is here, and the Thursday night showdown between the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans is right around the corner. I'm going to do this video for you guys, try to label everything that I like on this slate, but I have to let you know ahead of time, there is so much up in the air. At the time that I'm recording this slate, we're recording this at about 10 a.m. on Tuesday. And if you saw the injury reports from this game after practices on Monday, it was a laundry list of players from both teams. So instead of kind of knowing where we're sitting on a Tuesday for the Thursday night game, we kind of don't know as much as we normally know about who's going to be active and who's going to be inactive. So this slate, way more than any other showdown slate, is going to be about your if-then statements. You're going to have to come up with all the different things that you are planning to do in case. There are multiple players on this slate on both teams that are high impact players that are right now questionable game time decisions, and it's going to affect multiple other players behind them or next to them on the depth chart. And unfortunately, a lot of them have been priced up already, and their backups have been priced up already to deal with that injury situation, that there's no real glaring value that we can just kind of hang our hats on either. So this appears to be a somewhat difficult Thursday night slate from a breakdown perspective. Obviously, we'll know 90 minutes before lock who's active and who's inactive, and that will go about shaping everything. Okay, so that'll let us know who's out and who's in. And then if you have your if-then statements written down and you know what you want to do, if you're somebody who plays cash games, or if you play single entry or 3 max tournaments, you can use that My Lineups page on DraftKings, which will allow you to say, okay, this is a lineup I've entered, and you can label those lineups now. So you can say, okay, this is a lineup I've entered, and then here's a lineup if T.Y. Hilton is playing, and you have a different lineup based on that, and you can just export that to your tournament, your single entry tournament. You can do the same thing with other players on the slate. If Wilkins is active, if Will Fuller is active, how does that change your single entry lineup, and how does that change your allocations? I would suggest doing the same thing. If you're building lineups using an optimizer, the optimizer that I use is the one over at Daily Roto. They're going to do a great job of keeping you guys updated with the alerts and everything else and the changes, as well as their projections, which are top notch in the industry across the 5 different sports that are active right now. If you haven't given them a chance, go and check them out. There's a link down below in the description. Always use promo code SMIZLIFE at checkout for 10% off of a new membership. Let's go take a look at this slate. All the way up top, highest priced player in the captain spot is Deshaun Watson, coming off of a really awful week. We've seen plenty of games between Indy and Houston where they both kind of go back and forth and shoot out. This is 2 teams that know each other extremely well. We know that Deshaun Watson is better than the 5.96 points that he put up last week, averaging 23.7 with that 6 burger that he put up on Sunday against Baltimore. This is a different defense for Indy, but Indy does want to play slow, and there's a lot of injuries on this slate that's going to maybe try to make them play a little bit slower than normal, especially if T.Y. Hilton is out. If he's in, I like that offense a little bit more to kind of stretch things and allows more open routes underneath when you have a T.Y. Hilton on the field as opposed to when you don't. But Deshaun Watson is going to be your highest projected player on this slate from a raw projection standpoint. If you're going to plug him into your captain, be sure that you have a group made for him with every single one of the Houston offensive players. And for the love of God, can you not put in the comments that you have to have one player from the other team? Because I obviously know the rules for this game. We're talking about if you're using an optimizer to build lineups, you want to have every one of his pass catchers. If Will Fuller is active, I'm going to be using him in that group as well. If he's not, we're going to probably be using Kenny Stills more, obviously. If Fuller's in, I'm still going to have Stills in that group. I'll just have less shares of him. And then we can look down maybe at some of his tight ends. Obviously, his kicker will be in that group as well. Kiki Kute, Akins, if you want to plug him into that group as well. And I'm going to force at least 2 of these guys into every lineup that Deshaun Watson is my captain. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side if we're going to be playing JACOBY BRISSETT, who has been way better than people thought he was going to be. Gloom and doom was projected for this Colts team as soon as Andrew Luck announced his retirement in the preseason. But JACOBY BRISSETT, I I remember saying this before the season started. What if JACOBY BRISSETT, playing behind one of the best offensive lines in the league with a lot of good offensive weapons, doesn't suck? What if he's just an average quarterback in the NFL with all these other weapons around him? He could be a good quarterback, and he's turned into a good fantasy quarterback, albeit an inconsistent one based on the way that they play the game, right? He got injured in this game, so that's a different story. But 30 points against Houston, 25 against Oakland, 23 against Oakland, 23 against Atlanta, two teams that you can exploit. And as I said, this team does match up well, and we've seen high scoring outputs before from them, and we should expect them every time that they play, especially considering that both games are played indoors because both teams play indoors. If I'm putting Brissett into the captain spot, I said if I'm putting Brissett into the captain spot, I'm going to be building a lineup with every single one of his pass catchers, or not building a lineup, building a group with every single one of his pass catchers. T.Y. Hilton's the big question mark. Ramped up his rehab work in recent days, could be available for Thursday's game against the Titans. This is your first if-then statement on the slate. Him and Will Fuller are the first two. If he is active, then you kind of have to bump down every other pass catcher a little bit, as people will slot into their normal pass catching roles as opposed to guys like PASCAL who have bumped up. For now, let's assume that Hilton's going to be active. If he's not, things become a little bit easier, right? So if he's active, he's going to be in that Brissett group, along with every other player on that offense who catches the ball. Like I said, Zach Pascal priced at $8,000, which is about where he should be if T.Y. Hilton is there. But if T.Y. Hilton is not there, Pascal, he's priced as though Hilton is out, is kind of what I'm trying to say. It makes him much tougher to roster if Hilton is there. I think that we're not going to play Jordan Wilkins in that group. We probably are going to play Jack Doyle in that group. Eric Ebron missed practice on Monday. Could have been a Veterans Day, might not be. We're going to find out when the Tuesday practice report comes out. He was sick during that game. He had an ankle injury coming into that game. He might have aggravated it during the contest. If he's out, Jack Doyle becomes an absolute great play. Not a lock button. I don't lock button guys. I'm not saying he's a must play, but at 4,400 becomes a massive safety valve for JACOBY BRISSETT, especially in the absence of T.Y. Hilton. If Hilton and EBRON are out, Pascal takes a big jump, but Jack Doyle at 4,400 is the biggest beneficiary, in my opinion. You can also include HINES in that if those other two guys are out. The problem is at 6,200, the salary is a bit restrictive and you need him to play more snaps than he normally would. I'm hoping if those guys are out, see, like I said, this whole slate, this whole Thursday night showdown it's just a massive ball of if-then statements. If Hilton and Ebron are out, I think Nyheim Hines will play more snaps, probably run a little bit more in the slot, but he might not too. And there's a lot more danger playing him at that price at 6,200 than there is playing somebody like Jack Doyle. But I will include him in this group with Brissett. That's going to force me to put force the optimizer to play two of all of his pass catchers, and we'll go down and put all the others in there as well, forcing two of those. And I'm going to build that bring back group that we always talk about, where we're playing putting every single player on Houston in that bring back group. Fuller if he's active, Stills if he is or if he's not, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, everybody goes into that group, and I'm going to force at least one of those players from the other side. Players that I think are going to be extremely great in captain will be somebody like DeAndre Hopkins. There's no ifs, ands, or buts here. There's no if-then statement. There's no question marks. There's no anything. DeAndre Hopkins is an absolute stud who basically gets double-digit targets pretty much every week, has a ridiculously high floor, and access to an extremely high ceiling if he finds his way into the end zone once and or twice. 100 yards in play, double-digit catches are always in play, touchdowns, multiples are always in play with DeAndre Hopkins. And in an island game like this, if he can have 30 to 40 real-life points, and that is a part of his realistic bell curve, that is a part of his realistic ceiling. And I believe that DeAndre Hopkins is fine with or without Fuller. Fuller obviously attracts a little bit more attention. Fuller is great on his own, but is better with a DeAndre Hopkins on the other side. DeAndre Hopkins' targets basically are steady, and his role in this offense is set. he is the highest ceilinged captain, in my opinion. If I'm going to play Hopkins at captain, I'm going to make a group that forces Deshaun Watson into every lineup with DeAndre Hopkins at captain. They're both in flex, but if he's my captain, I'm forcing Watson into the Hopkins lineups, because if Hopkins has a ceiling game, it means that Watkins probably had a 25-point game, and I want to make sure that I have both of those in there. I'm not forcing bringbacks with that. As far as running backs in this game, I mentioned other if-then statements. We have Marlon Mack, who's coming off of a fantastic game, but broke his hand, has seen a ton of volume this year, is not going to play this week, is out indefinitely. That would usually mean that we're going to go with Jonathan Williams, who had a great second half in the absence of some other running backs on this slate, but I'm not expecting 9 yards per carry ever, or against Houston in this spot. He did have a long of 48, did catch a ball out of this backfield, or out of the backfield, but the if-then statement here, Jordan Wilkins has been in front of him on the depth chart the entire season, and though a non-participant in practice on Monday, is somebody who might play. He might play this week. And if he does, that throws a monkey wrench into everything for me in terms of wanting to play Williams, because there's a distinct possibility that they split and nobody separates themselves. And both of them have, like, I don't know, 10 to 12 carries. One has 14, the other has 10. Distinct possibility that that is the way that things materialize on this slate if Wilkins is active. So for me, if Wilkins is inactive, then Jordan Williams becomes a really great play at 5,600. Him along with Doyle, with the if-then statement that we've already built for Doyle, become two great value plays that allow you to do basically anything that you want with the rest of this slate. You could play Hopkins here, you could play Watson here. Assuming that all the players that we mentioned do not play, you're going to plug him, leaving you with 5,900 to spend on the rest of your lineup. Kickers and defense in this spot that we talk about pretty much every single week. Let's see, Houston, Fairburn, Vinatieri, and Colts D. Expecting this game to be very high scoring, I'm probably going to limit to one, maybe two of these in any single lineup, meaning I'm going to build a group on the Daily Roto lineup Daily Roto optimizer that says it's just going to be these 4 plays, and I'm going to make sure that there is a max of 2 in any one lineup. I will probably also build things that says, if such and such is in a captain spot, do not allow the defense from the other team. So if I've got Hopkins and captain, I'm going to disallow Colts defense to be in that. So exactly 0 Colts defense in any lineup with a captain that I expect to have a high upside there. I'm probably going to allow 1 kicker more than I would allow both defenses, or a kicker and a defense, but it's going to depend on how you go about building your lineups for this. And as I said, from a Tuesday perspective, this game looks like it's a bit of a mess based on all of the injuries that we just don't know yet. I like to talk about what we know, and right now there's a lot that we don't. So hopefully all those if-then statements have helped you guys to prepare you for Thursday night. Be sure that you're at your workstation for this one. Sounds like an NBA slate, right? Because you're going to need to know 90 minutes before lock when those inactives come out, because that's going to dictate where we go on this slate, because this one's got a lot up in the air. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notifications bell. Until the next video, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.
He's a legend.